Weilà raga, how's it going everybody? Welcome to this lesson of Italian Small Bites where we take a look at Italian in context and I show you guys how you can study and learn the language in a targeted way that's all based on seeing things in context. If you'd like to see the other lessons in this series, I'll have them linked down below in the description, along with more information if you want to learn about my live weekly group lessons that I give on Zoom, and also if you want to check out the Zero to Hero Italian Grammar series where we cover everything from zero. All right, guys, so without further ado, let's just go straight on over to the digital whiteboard and let's start talking about our sentence for today of small bites, because we're taking a small look. We're not covering something from A to Z. We're just jumping right in, taking a nice small bite or even a big bite out of it. It depends how you look at it. I just think small bites. It's just the word that comes to mind. I like the way it sounds. But anyway, I guess you could say we kind of take a deep dive in a way too. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's just get to our phrase here. We've got two sentences. One is longer than the other, and then we're going to break them down. I'll probably have to break them down in parts because they're quite long. So anyway, mia cugina era troppo forte ieri sera quando ci raccontava quella storia. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. So step one when reading is read it through just to understand what's going on, to get your mouth used to the words that you're pronouncing, to sort of take a survey. What tenses are we dealing in? What does this have to do with? So we'll translate it as well. This means, and I'll underline as I go, my cousin was so funny last night when she recounted to us, when she told us that story. I could not do less than laugh. That's what it literally means. It means I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help but laugh. All right? So I'm going to get rid of all these underlines, all of this underlining and all of this highlighting. And let's break down word for word what we got going on here. And also, as I mentioned in the last episode, I said when you're doing practice reading, try to group things in groups of 2 or 3. It really depends on context. For example, here, I could either just say, mia cugina era troppo forte. So here, I could split it up into one group of 2 and then a group of 3. The things that are related to each other. Over the course of time, you see what works, what makes sense, what is most natural. I could have said, mia cugina era troppo forte. I could actually just say all the words together. Mia cugina era troppo forte. But to break it down, mia cugina era troppo forte. Even put that era on its own if you want. Mia cugina era troppo forte. You could do that. Ieri sera, quando ci raccontava quella storia. That would be good to do a grouping of 4 there. Ci raccontava quella storia. So mia cugina era troppo forte ieri sera quando ci raccontava quella storia. Non potevo fare a meno. I would put that all together. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. Or non potevo fare a meno di ridere. I would do it like that. Non potevo fare a meno. Like really land on that a meno and then go di ridere. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. That's how I'd do it. Okay. So now that we have some pronunciation down, let's see what's happening from a grammatical, from a meaning point of view here. All right, let's begin with mia cugina era troppo forte. Let's start with that. So I'm going to copy this right here, and we're going to bring it down here. So I am going to do some back and forth copy and pasting and scrolling up and down, so I hope you don't find that fastidioso. Hope you don't find that bothersome. So, mia cugina. The first thing I want to mention about mia cugina is when you're talking about one family member, it doesn't matter whose it is, you don't have to use the possessive article. So I'm just going to remind you of that rule. One family member, I'm going to use shorthand, one family member, don't have to use definite article, the word for the. So because it's one family member, you don't have to do it. If you check out our video on possession, which I'll have linked down below, we talk about this in more depth because there then is an exception to the exception. So this is an exception to the general rule. With possession, we always use the definite article, but in this case, you don't have to. So check out that video for more info. Now, why are we saying era troppo forte? First things first, why era? Because I'm talking about something that was happening in the background. She was just so funny last night. Yes, I then explain when or while she was recounting that story to us, when she was telling us that story. But it doesn't really matter that the specific moment does not really matter. I just want you to know she was so funny last night. And it just so happened to be when, while, during this moment in which she was recounting that story. She could have been telling the story for 15 minutes. So because of that, I'm liking era here. I'm liking imperfect. I'll have our video on the Imperfetto also linked down below. And now, troppo forte. So let's explain that for a second. So, troppo forte is an expression you can use in Italian to say that something is so funny. And I spelled troppo wrong because I was probably thinking of the forte piece. So, troppo forte is like so funny. It's a way of saying hilarious. Hilarious. I think it's one L. I don't think it's hilarious. It was so funny, it's hilarious. You can just use that as a remark to someone. They say something you find really funny. Troppo forte. Troppo forte. Okay, so that's good. So, mia cugina era troppo forte. She was just so funny. Then we have here, ieri sera, quando ci raccontava quella storia. Okay, actually, I need to do it this way. There we go. Quando ci raccontava quella storia. Perfect. Let's copy and paste this bit. And scroll down here. We're going to paste it. And excellent. Always some extra little pieces tend to come in. Okay. So, ieri sera is simply last night. Ieri sera. They say sera in Italian instead of ieri notte. Okay? You don't have to use the word notte just because we use night in English. So ieri sera is, yes, yesterday evening, literally, but it's the Italian equivalent of last night. Okay? So I'm just going to make a note of that right here. Ieri sera is last night. Ieri notte does exist. Ieri notte is more for during the night when you were sleeping. Ieri sera, last night. Okay. Quando just means when. Ci raccontava quella storia. Okay. The ci here is an object pronoun. I would say this is probably an indirect object pronoun. I'll have that video linked down below because it's recounted to us, the story. Yeah, it's not the thing she was recounting, it is to whom she was recounting that story. So that's an important point. So the ci here is what we call an indirect, I'm just going to do some shorthand, indirect object pronoun because it's answering the question, to whom did my cousin recount this story? She recounted it to us. This is the first person plural indirect object pronoun. It also happens to be the same as the first person plural direct object pronoun. They look the same, just a different use here. So we call that first person. The title doesn't really matter that much. I just want to teach it to you. First person plural. What does that mean? It is the we form, the us form, the to us form. Because to whom, it's indirect, we're using it in that way here. Because, why is it first person plural? Because I am a part of the group. So io is first person singular. So first person singular is io. First person plural is noi. Just going to write it up here. Sorry, it's kind of all over the place, but there you have it. First person singular, io. First person plural, noi. I'm a part of that group. Okay, so to whom is she explaining it? To us. Why am I using the imperfetto here? I was talking about this when we were mentioning era earlier, because this is while she was recounting it. It doesn't matter the exact moment in which she said it. Could I use passato prossimo here instead? Yes, that could be a judgment call in this situation. But because I'm talking about a background thing, that's why I'm using imperfetto. She could have been retelling this story 1,000 times that night because we just couldn't get enough of it. Quella storia is just simply that story. Nice, perfect gender and number agreement. I'll have that video linked down below as well. So let me just show you very quickly here. Raccontare. So raccontare, I love that verb. This is to recount. It's often used when we're talking about storytelling. So often for stories. And we're using it in the imperfetto here to say raccontava, raccontava, which could have the meaning of was telling, was recounting. In English, we can also say telling because you tell a story. So was telling, and then probably I'll write a story next to it so you remember. It's specifically about recounting this tale. Was recounting, she recounted. It can also be used in that way. When she told that story. But remember, it's was recounting, was telling, recounted, told. You can also use that as a translation as well. Just depends on how you're speaking. So that's why we say raccontava. Very nice. So this story was so funny. I really enjoyed it. And then what is our last sentence here? Allora, non potevo fare a meno di ridere. Here is another nice expression. So we first had troppo forte. So troppo forte was like our first expression of this lesson. The next one is fare a meno. Fare a meno, and we use the preposition di after it. I'll have our video on prepositions linked down below as well. Now, I know that could sound overwhelming. Oh my goodness, how many videos do I have to look at? But this is meant to come after Zero to Hero. It's meant to come after you've already at least covered the basics, just even through with one pass, un passo. You just went through it one time, one round. That's okay. Now you can say, hey, he's saying the word preposition. I remember D, don't know how it's used. There's a there also. Maybe I should go take a look at that video again and I'll just be hyper-focused on those specific things. Look at it that way. Okay, so non potevo fare a meno di ridere. Let's scroll all the way back down here and let's get that next piece here. Okay, non potevo fare a meno di ridere. Okay, let's move that. And let's move this guy over. There we go. Oh, now I feel like I gotta move the whole thing because I just want it to look nice. Non potevo fare. Look at all this copy and pasting. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now I feel better about it. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. Okay. So once again, using the imperfetto here because it's a background. I keep using the word background. That is one of the uses of the imperfetto. Something was just going on. It was just happening. Okay? So non potevo, I just could not fare a meno. So fare a meno means basically to help it. You know how we say in English, I just can't help it? Think of fare a meno. I could not do, there's something like least but, it's not coming to me. There may be something in English that's similar. So fare a meno di plus the verb. So it's whatever the thing is that you can't help but do. So non potevo fare a meno di ridere. We don't want the eraser, we want the highlighter. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. I just couldn't help but laugh. If it was something that was sad, maybe it was a sad situation, you could say non potevo fare a meno di piangere. So, I just couldn't help but cry. Non potevo fare a meno di piangere. And we're going to close on this one point here. I want to bring in ne, because if you want to keep repeating, I just couldn't help it, just couldn't help it, just couldn't help it, you could say non potevo farne a meno. And how come we can say that? Because if you want to replace di che cosa, what is it the thing that you could not help but do? So di and the verb here we're replacing with ne, and we can attach it on to fare because that's the verb that's not conjugated. So non potevo farne a meno. If instead you wanted to take this ne and put it here before the verb potere, you could. Non ne potevo fare a meno. You could do that. In my personal experience, the way that we have it right here, non potevo farne a meno, sounds better. I prefer it. Sounds better to me. And there you have it, guys. So let's just scroll back up to the top as we conclude our lesson for today to review what we went over. The whole phrase in context here. So, mia cugina era troppo forte ieri sera quando ci raccontava quella storia. Non potevo fare a meno di ridere. And then you can add something like che bello, che bel momento, che bei ricordi. You know, what a nice time, what a happy situation, what great memories. Something like that. All right, everybody, so that is going to be it for our lesson of small bites today. Hope you guys learned something new and enjoyed this video. As I mentioned before, we're going to have all the videos of the related topics where we go over the topic from A to Z, da zero, from zero, linked down below in the description. And that's going to be it. So thanks so much for tuning in and checking out this video. Always remember to spread the love, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao ragazzi. Ciao.